Here, I'm going to show you how the deductive reasoning approach is used in my own research. Because I'm a medical sociologist, health inequality is one of my research foci. And this study is based on an existing dataset called the Health and Retirement Study. For visual impairment, the longitudinal dataset was collected from 2002 to 2014. For BMI, data was collected from the very beginning, which is 1992 to the 2014 wave. There are at least 3 theories that can be used to explain different aspects of health inequality. And these 3 theoretical perspectives existed a long time ago, maybe for decades. They are the cumulative advantage perspective, the persistent inequality perspective, and the age as leveler perspective. However, a review of relevant literature reveals that these 3 theoretical perspectives have not been used to assess racial differences in BMI and visual functioning. So because of that, this is how I'm going to fill in the research gaps by testing whether interracial gaps in visual performance and BMI is supported by one or more of these theoretical perspectives. If I just focus on the traditionalist cohort, those born between 1900 and 1945, I found that the cumulative advantage perspective is supported for the difference in odds of visual impairment between white females with at least a high school diploma and black males with less than a high school diploma. As you can see from the graph, the gaps in the odds of visual impairment between the two groups, they widen over time. So when you see the gap widens over time, we know that the cumulative advantage perspective is supported for these two groups of people. If I just focus on the traditionalist cohort, I found that the persistent inequality perspective is supported for the differences in the odds of visual impairment between white males with at least a high school diploma and black males with at least a high school diploma. This perspective is supported when we see 2 parallel lines. If I just focus on the baby boomers cohort, those born between 1946 and 1964, I found that the age as leveler perspective is supported for the differences in the odds of visual impairment between white females with at least a high school diploma and Hispanic male with at least a high school diploma. As you can see here, the odds of visual impairment for the two groups of people, they narrow over time. So because of that, the age as leveler perspective is supported for these two groups of people. Here, all respondents in the survey are included in the study. And here, we see that the BMI gap between white male with at least a high school education and white male with less than a high school education, they widen over time. So, when we see the gap widens over time for two groups of people, we conclude that the cumulative advantage perspective is supported for BMI differences between white males with at least a high school diploma and white males with less than a high school diploma. Here again, all respondents are included. We see a parallel trend in the BMI gap between white females with at least a high school education and Hispanic females with at least a high school education. When we see a parallel trend or a parallel gap, we conclude that the persistent inequality perspective is supported. Here, I only restricted my sample to those who are very old, those born between 1890 and 1923. We call these people the ahead cohort. And you see the BMI gap between white and black with less than a high school education. Their BMI gap narrow over time. When you see two lines, they narrow over time or they converge over time. We say that the age as leveler perspective is supported for BMI differences over time for whites and blacks with less than a high school education.